It was a positive finish to an otherwise awful road trip for the Royals. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You were tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length, though that is going to be a little bit different this week as I will be out on vacation beginning the middle of the week. So my plan is, as of right now, to do 2 episodes on Monday, 2 episodes on Tuesday, and then that would just mean we don't have any content coming from me personally Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and of course over the weekend. But you can count on Chance Lebo for the Locked On Royals postcast. Also give him a follow on Twitter at Chance Lebo for all types of Royals coverage. So while I'm out, you can still count on him to give you those daily episodes or those daily postcasts. But after next week, we will be back to normal. But that is kind of the plan for the immediate future. Also want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. We are going to be talking about a win to close out the series in St. Louis, also to close out the road trip, but not disregard how disappointing and really humiliating the road trip was for the Kansas City Royals. You were coming off of a winning homestand where you were 4-3 over those 7 games, and you take on a White Sox team that, yes, has just been playing with all kinds of confidence, but you get swept there, and now the White Sox have as many wins against you through the first 2 months of the season than they did combined through 2024 and 2025. I mean, it's a polar opposite look from what you've seen in regards to the Royals and the White Sox when they've met head-to-head. And then after the sweep, you go to St. Louis and you drop Friday night's game in dramatic fashion. It was extra innings. You had your opportunities. The Cardinals did too. I would have said this, that the Royals win that game, the Cardinals would probably tell themselves there will not be another game this season in which we had that many opportunities and constantly came up empty. Unfortunately, when you're just playing poor baseball, you don't win games like that. I mean, the Royals had their kill shots. They had the Cardinals in the crosshairs, and they couldn't get it done. And then that bled into Saturday's game where there wasn't anything that really stood out to me. They just didn't play well enough late. I mean, I would try to look for something and put the blame on someone or some aspect of the game. Noah Cameron tossed a quality start. Bailey Falter came in to replace, of course, Matt Strahm, who's now on the injured list, but he came in to replace Noah Cameron, and he did okay. The offense wasn't good, also didn't have many opportunities, so maybe you chalk it up to that. The offense wasn't good enough. But I thought that with today's game approaching, you had about as little of juice, as little of confidence as maybe you had all season long when it came to the Royals, because we've already endured a long losing streak. And if you can go back to some of our episodes during that losing streak, I said that every team faces this point in the season where they go, will this be the worst we ever look? Will this 7-game losing streak, this 8-game losing streak, our offense is bottom 3 in the league, our bullpen is the worst in the league? Do you chalk that up and go, this is as bad as we'll ever look and we'll never look back? Our longest losing streak will be 3 games or 4 games, but nothing to the magnitude of 8 or 9 games. Well, a couple weeks later, the Royals go on to lose 6 consecutive games, where they lost last Sunday, literally a week ago, to the Guardians on Sunday Night Baseball, were largely uncompetitive against the White Sox, and then you find yourself down 2-0 to the Cardinals going into today. It would have been nice to see the Royals really pound St. Louis and win 10-1, and you kind of go, oh, they had the walk-off loss on Friday, but they were right there. It was close on Saturday, and then they hammered the Cardinals. Like, you're going to have some of those series where you're right there, a victory is within your grasp, but you don't get it done. But then in the series finale, you just finally open up the floodgates and you win that game comfortably. It's not what we saw today, though. Stephen Kolek, who we had him as our Monday headliner of this past week, the test that he was going to have in Cole Reagan's absence, didn't pass his first test in the start against Chicago. He really passed the test with flying colors with 6 1/3 scoreless today. And the Royals desperately needed it. Here's where I'm at, because I don't need to go through each and every game of this road trip. You guys remember what happened. You guys watch these games. I don't need to, analyze certain bullpen moves. We will talk about a lineup choice that I just absolutely in no way, shape, or form was in favor of. Well, that'll be in the second segment. Here's where I'm at when it comes to the 20-27 Kansas City Royals. If you want to remain optimistic, if you want to believe with their 2.5 games back of a playoff spot, it's May 16th. I don't need to do the whole song and dance of it's early and these guys can get going. You guys have heard me do that spiel before. If you want to remain optimistic and you don't really care what anybody else says, you have to take this really game by game. Because even though you can look at the standings and say, well, they're 2.5 out, why don't they take a series here and take a series there? The Royals are not good enough to be looking that far ahead. They're nowhere close to being good enough. You can't have multiple 6-game losing streaks before you hit June 1. And then all of a sudden, snap of the finger, and you're a great baseball team. We've seen the good version of this team, but the inconsistencies are going to come back to bite you the longer you let this type of play linger, right? You can't be this volatile when it comes to your overall performance. Now, it's great to sweep Seattle. You can't then have this 5-game winning streak and only win one more game over your previous 4, then lead that into a 6-game losing streak. To me, that is what is going to prevent you from getting going. Now you've got Boston and Seattle in town, and if I'm not mistaken, they've got New York right after that. The Royals have been a much better team at home this year than on the road. Instead of doing what we usually do, though, which is, hey, you got a 7-game homestand, a 9-game homestand, why don't you just have a winning record? And you'll feel good about it. Well, if the Royals have a winning record on this homestand, it doesn't really move the needle for you that much. You're 1 game over 500. You're still 6 games below 500 overall. And that's 9 more games out of the way, and that's 9 more home games out of the way. So like I said, you want to remain optimistic. You don't want to pay attention to the negativity and this and that. It's really a game-by-game basis. I'm not sure that you can look at this Boston series and go, okay, here's the pitching matchups on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we'll reveal those probably at some point in this show. They're already out there. I know the Red Sox throw Sonny Gray, who always has the Royals' number, Ranger Suarez, and Connolly early in the 3 games. The Royals will counter with, I'd have to go double check, but we'll get into it at some point later on in the show. You take it game by game, though. The Royals won a game today. It feels better than losing a game. And until they get close enough to 500, and they were just a week ago, but until they get to that point, we got to stop evaluating this thing as, well, let's look 10 games down the road. Let's look 15 games down the road. It is a 1-game sample size for this baseball team. I also think it's this way too. The player aspect, the individual performances. Let's take it in a single game sample size instead of doing the 10-game sample size. Because what it's going to do 45 games into the season is you're going to see a player have a great 10-game stretch and they're going to have a bad 10-game stretch. That's what I've seen so far from this version of the Kansas City Royals. You can't really take any of these stretches seriously when it seems that all of these players are just bouncing back and forth with what they're providing you. They get super hot, then they get super cold. It'd be one thing if you saw a guy start slowly, then they get hot and they only get hotter. The only one that's really done that is Bobby Witt Jr. Everybody else in the lineup, I mean, they've had their cold stretches, of course, and some guys haven't even snapped out of it. But Isaac Collins, to me, is a good example. Didn't start the year well, was heating up, went ice cold again. And you're going, okay, well, if I read into the hot stretch, the cold stretch, is that really who the player is? Well, at some point, that is going to be the case. You're going to have a player that's just what their numbers are. It's what they're providing you, and that's maybe who they've been the entire season. But for my own sanity, I'm taking this one game at a time. The Royals go out tomorrow and win a game, great. They don't. It's been more of the same from what we've seen over the last week and a half. But even if they win that one game, you flush it, you move on. Now it's about the next one. And the goal is to continue to chip away, or for an individual player, get better and better while just focusing on the first game in front of you. And then you look back on the series and go, great, we took 2 out of 3. Or best case scenario, you swept that team. But you don't want to get ahead of yourself. I kind of thought on the road trip, I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it, and I'm guilty of it on the homestand. I got ahead of myself. It's 7-game homestand, go 4-3, right? Not saying you can't do that. But to me, when you get into this, well, they got to be this after 9 games and they lose the first 2 or 3, now you're already adjusting what you think this team needs to do. They're 20-27. They are not a playoff threat. They're not an AL Central favorite. I mean, they are, by every definition so far through 47 games, the worst team in the Central, just record-wise. I mean, Minnesota has shown more consistency. The White Sox and Guardians and Tigers shown more consistency. The Tigers are down there with the Royals, but what the Royals have going for them over Detroit is that they're not as banged up as the Tigers are. The Tigers are really banged up, and some of those guys aren't coming back anytime soon. But you can't get caught up on all of that. To me, you won the game today, go win tomorrow, and then you just try to win the day after that. And maybe that can be a way mentally you prepare yourself to start playing better baseball. How do you see this homestand going for the Kansas City Royals? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, there was a lineup choice today that I completely disagree with on all fronts. And I'm going to tell you what it was, though I'm sure a lot of you already know, but I'm going to give you my opinion on why I disliked it so much. That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. The NBA playoffs are in full swing and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. You guys know that I love using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. I can check the stats, trends, and matchups before making my picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether I'm looking at player props or just following the favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel. Play your game. And I'm going to do a futures bet here on the Oklahoma City Thunder to go back-to-back in the NBA. They just have been an unstoppable force, and I don't see them being stopped anytime soon. Also, want to tell you about the second sponsor here in 5 Hour Energy. And with 5 Hour Energy, if you got that sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic cotton candy taste that you remember, but with tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. The flavor really does bring that throwback fruity vanilla vibe, and it's surprisingly smooth. I like how convenient it is too. It's just a small portable shot so I can grab it and go whenever I need it. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots, available online now at 5hourenergy.com or at amazon.com. We're back here on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Want to tell you about the Everydayer Club. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of this show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to the URL link, and they will be able to take you from there. Earlier this afternoon, we saw the Royals post a lineup for the road trip finale, the series finale in St. Louis. And the minute it posted on social media, or if you saw it on MLB.com, I knew what the public reaction was going to be. Now, let me be very clear. For a large portion of this season, you probably have been able to tell, and I won't shy away from it. When there's been the righty heavy, the righty platoon lineups against the tough lefty, I've never had too much of a gripe with it. You know, I've seen the countless comments of they got to play Cags, they got to play Jensen, they just have to get these guys to develop. And I said on Friday for the mailbag segment that, you know, those guys have to show in smaller sample sizes that they can handle left-handed pitching. It's not just about throwing them out there against a tough lefty and you got to sink or swim. But you go out there when there's a lefty reliever out there and you get a hit or you draw a walk and you do that consistently, then you're going to turn yourself into an everyday player. Then I would see the comments of, well, why do Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione get treated this way, but not Vinny Pasquantino, who in his career has been atrocious against lefties, right? And I guess my answer for that would be it's a little bit of the seniority, right? Vinny Pasquantino has been a successful everyday player at the big league level. The Royals have put him out there nearly every single day. He had a 30 home run season, drove in over 100. That does hold some weight when you're comparing him to rookie hitters or sophomore guys that have never done it before at the big league level. Today, though, is where I didn't have any sort of rebuttal for it. I didn't really, not really to call it an excuse. The lineup decision today against Andre Pallante with Lane Thomas over Jack Caglione. Caglione following up from his 2-for-4 day. He had the solo home run. I mean, he was the only guy to really do any damage yesterday or the game on Saturday compared to everybody else in the lineup. So to see that move when there's a righty on the mound, my first reaction was, oh, he must be dealing with some type of flu. He must be dealing with some nagging injury. And then you're starting to go worst case scenario and think, you know, did he agitate his oblique or whatnot? Did he feel something in batting practice? Why would there be a reason for Jack Caglione against a righty and an average righty to be sitting on the bench? And you saw in Jalen Thompson's tweet that he was sitting because Andre Pallante had some of the reverse splits, and this was getting everybody involved. And so Lane Thomas, who was not brought here to hit righties, was in the lineup, and Cags was on the bench. The Royals won the game, but that's not really the point of this. Jack Caglione, in no world, should be sitting against a right-hander. I don't really want to, dive into the platoon splits there, the reverse split. I don't really need any of that stuff. And maybe that goes against my argument all season long. If let's not pay attention to the data there, let's go with this guy. But to me, Caglione can't be a guy that has to sit against a right-hander that might be tougher on lefties because he's still a better option than Lane Thomas against righties. And Thomas was 0 for 3 today. I mean, he did have the walk in the ninth inning where the Royals loaded the bases and didn't score. But I would almost rather go out there and say, okay, Lane Thomas doesn't really hit righties. And even if Andre Pallante is better against lefties, you got Jensen out there, you got Vinny out there, you've got Isbell out there. So you didn't want to put a fourth lefty out there, but it's also the guy who had the home run yesterday. He is a power threat in the lineup. That's where I would say, let's not overmanage here. Let's not overdo it with the platoon splits and the reverse splits. Let's just go with the young first-round pick that has been better this year and does give you that power option in the middle of the order. The other part to this too, which I'm not sure I've really gone into it as much, maybe I have in some previous seasons, the Royals' philosophy, Matt Quattro's philosophy of a platoon lineup, on paper and where he comes from, Tampa Bay, they would utilize a lineup like that a lot. And we would all view Tampa Bay and say, man, I mean, you don't know a chunk of the guys in their lineup, but they're great offensively. They have timely hits. They hit well with runners in scoring position. They've got power. They play small ball. How do the Rays do it? With this small market approach of they got a bunch of guys, they play a bunch of different players, different lineups every single night. And then in Kansas City, it just doesn't work as well. And my approach now to it is that the philosophy and the idea can be correct, but it won't work if you don't have really good options off the bench to be good platoon hitters. Last year, Boston had Rob Refsnyder. Now, Rob Refsnyder's not been good in Seattle this year, but he absolutely obliterated left-handed pitching. So it was a no-brainer to put him in the lineup when the Red Sox were facing a tough lefty. He goes out there, 2 for 3, has a big hit, drives in a couple of runs. It makes sense to do it. Lane Thomas is now 1 for his last 20. He's had a hot stretch before. But going from Jack Caglione to Lane Thomas against a righty, to me, the numbers just won't add up there. Now, if there's a Royals team down the road that loads up their bench and has a bunch of high floor players that can come in there and do some damage, then you can make more sense of the platoon lineups out there. It's not just throwing every right-handed batter that you have out there, because we've seen some nights where the Royals have 8 righties in the lineup, including Elias Diaz and Lane Thomas and Nick Lofton, though Lofton's been pretty good this year. But you have a bunch of righties in there and the Royals score 1 or 2 runs. Things would be different if you've got more upside there, more high-floor players that aren't going to have an 0 for 4 and 0 for 5 night. And that's why I just go back to today and I would say, okay, Andre Palante, you got the reverse splits. You're paying attention to that. But Lane Thomas is not some severe upgrade where it's just, Cags isn't in the lineup, but we do have Lane Thomas in there. Against lefties, you can make that case that this year he's been pretty good against lefties. Therefore, him playing over Caglione against the tougher lefty, that can make sense. Today, I'm not going to read too much into the reverse splits. I'm going, Jack Caglione was 2 for 4 yesterday. He had the home run. If we're going to ease him into left-handed pitching, there just cannot be a game in which he sits against a righty, and especially a righty like Andre Palante, who's, he's had a fine season. He's got the funky delivery, the funky angle. He's got the tough slider. Fastball sinker was 95 to 97 today. But Jack Caglione has to be a good enough player to even play against guys like that, right? I know Carter Jensen's in there because, he's DHing and Salvi's behind the plate, but, that's my other argument. Okay, so Carter gets to DH, but not Caglione. Why is that? Carter's not been great against lefties this year, and Carter was colder than Jack going into, at least this series. But it's just something I would prefer not to see again. Maybe for a lot of you, you're going to love that I have criticized the lineup decision, but that's one where I go, to me, you don't need to overmanage in that spot. To me, let's just go, he provided us a spark yesterday. Hey, but Palante's got a little bit better numbers against lefties, but let's still go with Caglione over Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas is great against righties, then maybe you can have that argument. You can make that case to make that switch. But I just would rather see not Lane Thomas, of course. I just had a whole point against that. I would rather see Jack Caglione in there than Lane Thomas. What did you guys make of the lineup that was out earlier today? I know the Royals won, but I'm sure a lot of you have some frustrations with it. Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this episode with Matt Strahm going on the injured list and how tough of a spot the bullpen is in now. That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of guys deal with it at some point, and that's exactly why HIMS offers a straightforward way to handle it. HIMS connects you with licensed healthcare providers online, giving you access to legitimate ED treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process that makes it easier to take care of yourself. The whole process is simple. You just complete a quick online intake, and a provider reviews your information. If treatment is right for you, it ships directly to your door in discreet packaging which makes the whole experience feel private and stress-free. They also offer options like Slideafil, the generic for Viagra, at a fraction of the cost, plus other treatments so you can find what works best for you. It's straightforward, transparent, and designed to make getting care feel easy. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, and weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/lockedonmlb. That's hims.com/lockedonmlb for your free online visit. hims.com/lockedonmlb. We are wrapping up this special Sunday episode of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. Let's talk about this bullpen, the tough spot they are now in with Matt Strahm going on the injured list with knee inflammation. We saw it flare up on Friday night when he was pitching in the, what would that have been, the eighth or the ninth inning? I want to say it was the ninth inning against the Cardinals, where he was hopping around a little bit, grimacing in pain. He did not finish the frame. John Schreiber did end up coming in, and Kyle Isbell had that unbelievable catch to send it into extras. But when he was walking off the mound, I'm thinking to myself, they just really can't afford another high-leverage reliever to wind up on the injured list. Now, today, the Royals were very fortunate to see Stephen Kolek throw 6 1/3, and we'll probably talk about him a little bit more in tomorrow morning's episode, and then we'll recap what happens in Game 1 against Boston in the evening portion episode. But if Stephen Kolek didn't go 6 innings today, I mean, if he gave you 5 innings, a 1-run ball on 90 pitches, you're probably going to the bullpen at that point to preserve the lead. But you need John Schreiber, you need Nick Mears, you need Daniel Lynch, you need Lucas Erceg, and maybe a couple of those guys to throw multiple innings or at least go 1+. Because with the state of the bullpen, they just cannot afford to be worn down in Game 1 and Game 2. I mean, Lucas Erceg, you know he's got the 9th inning. Daniel Lynch has maybe been the all-around best reliever for the Royals in 2026, and maybe is kind of being too gentle. I mean, I think that he has been the Royals' best reliever, most reliable, most consistent. He's been a joy to watch. Nick Mears, we know that he's been up and down. He danced around danger on Friday night, but that's just kind of what he's been doing. You know, he's got a low opponent batting average. He's got a lower ERA, but he's had some outings that have gotten away from him because he's constantly playing with fire. Same goes for John Schreiber. And so to see Matt Strahm go down, and fingers crossed, it's just the knee inflammation. You get that calmed down, and then you have maybe one rehab outing, and you're back in the Royals bullpen, and you're not too worried about it. Last year, the year before that, you almost kind of saw somebody going down in the bullpen as an opportunity for somebody to take a job and just build that confidence up. I mean, Hunter Harvey went on the injured list very early on last year and multiple times throughout 2025, but it allowed Steven Cruz to really shine and get those opportunities. And he gave up the walk-off hit on Friday night, but his stuff looked really good. I mean, it was a good swing on a fine pitch. You throw 100 miles an hour. I mean, I want to say that every pitch he threw in the 11th inning was north of 100 miles an hour. You'll take that every single time from Steven Cruz. And he was throwing strikes. It wasn't like he was throwing 100, but it was all over the place. With Bailey Falter back, now you've got a couple of guys who are more long relievers in there, Luinder Avila and Bailey Falter, and we'll see how they'll, use Alex Lang at this point. But the numbers are dwindling, and there's not many options, if any, in AAA Omaha. I mean, you get Daniel Lynch on the sideline for, and I know I'm saying sideline in baseball, more so just saying being sideline, or Erceg. I mean, at that point, you can barely piece together a bullpen. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm knocking on wood here. You might not be able to hear it as well through this microphone, but you have one more injury to the bullpen before one of those guys comes back. Now you've got more than just a few issues that are being presented. Because holding down leads late when you're throwing it to guys that just don't have the command, don't have the lights out stuff anymore, I mean, it's just not a recipe for a team that's trying to find a way to crawl back into it. And I've said before, bullpens can be very easy to fix. They really can. I mean, You make a few changes here and there, a few guys get hot, and all of a sudden your bottom five bullpen can pitch like a middle of the league bullpen. The middle of the league bullpen can pitch like a top five bullpen. And part of this comes down to the starting rotation throwing quality starts. We had our semi-rant, if you even want to call it that, on starting rotation. Somebody's got to go out there, attack the zone, be aggressive, and work deep into the game. Well, Stephen Kolek was able to do that. To an extent, Noah Cameron and Michael Wacha did that, and you took some pressure off the bullpen. Now you really need to do that. Because without Matt Strahm, and Daniel Lynch is probably down for tomorrow's game, you need to eat some innings. Therefore, you're not having to throw it to somebody who's not a high-leverage reliever to try to hold on to a 1 or 2 run lead or a tie game late against a team like Boston who's struggling, but historically has had your number more often than not. How concerned are you with the bullpen and the injuries they've endured? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode, and tomorrow morning we will talk about Stephen Kolek and how he looked and maybe what the Royals can do with Cole Reagans once he comes back. But if you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Royals ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to the URL link below to join the club. And for those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Until tomorrow morning, you take it easy, Kansas City.